you in charge of that?
What does he look like, the
Stocking
water
the fridge.
boy?
There's no big gallons? There's no big...
We need water in the back.
Is there sparklets? Yeah, that's how we're doing it now.
All right.
Yeah, we're not using bottles.
No, I knew that, but I didn't realize there was an extra.
I didn't look.
Right.
What extra one? I don't know.
All right.
Okay.
Time for our off-color jokes.
All right, we'll call to order the joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. May we have a roll call for the City Council?
Council members: Raymond.
Here.
Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Quintero.
Here.
And could we have a roll call for the agency, please?
Agency members: Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chairman Draymond.
Here.
May we have your report?
The agenda for the February 2nd, 2010 joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, January 28, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. The item before you today is the Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding proposed temporary art galleries and art displays in vacant downtown storefronts. 1A is agency motion to prepare and authorize release of a request for proposals, RFP, seeking a private consultant for the proposed program.
Mr. Starberg.
Yes, again to Phil Lanzafame. Phil?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Chairman, members of the Redevelopment Agency. Late last year, the Redevelopment Agency asked staff to look at programs to display art and to utilize vacant buildings as a way not only to create exhibit space, but also to help market those spaces. Staff has worked with with Community Services and Parks and their art coordinator, and come up with three kind of avenues or directions to go. So really, it's a policy decision for you. We're looking for some direction to give you a brief summary of those three different methods of implementing this type of program is analyst Annette Vartanian.
Good afternoon, Mayor Quintero, members of the council, Agency Chair Draymond, and members of the agency. As Mr. Lanzafame stated, there are three models that staff has identified that are currently being utilized in neighboring cities such as Pasadena, Los Angeles, Berkeley, and Long Beach. These are city-managed, private contract with the city, and managed by a business improvement district. The city-managed model is currently being discussed, and in Palm Springs they're trying to come up with guidelines to implement in the city of Palm Springs in their downtown. The private consultant model is being utilized in Los Angeles, Pasadena, as well as Long Beach. The Long Beach Redevelopment Agency is contracted out with Phantom Galleries to oversee the entire program in their downtown area. And finally, the Business Improvement District managed model is being utilized in downtown Berkeley, and city staff, part of the Cultural Affairs Division, Economic Development, work with the Business Improvement District to help manage this model. At this point, staff recommends the private consultant model, as we don't have a Business Improvement District established in our downtown, and the city managed model doesn't have an established history or set guidelines for us to follow. We presented this program to the Arts and Culture Commission last week. They recommend the private consultant model. They're very happy with the program and would like to stay involved in the program regardless of where the agency and city council choose to take this program. We have distributed a downtown district map just for your reference, just to see where some of our vacancies are. As you can see, we probably have approximately 10 vacancies along Brand Boulevard. This includes some of the vacancies at the Americana, Marketplace, Mervyn's, and a few others located at the Marketplace along Broadway and the Exchange. At this point, staff is requesting the council and agency to authorize us to release an RFP to seek private consultants for the program, and we will prepare a program guidelines with budget and present this back to the agency along with the RFP results. Staff is here from Redevelopment, as well as Community Services and Parks, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right.
Okay, are there any questions?
Well,
Najarian.
so with regard to the cost, the private the BID would impliedly pay for itself from the BID funds. The city run or city managed, we don't have a good comparison because Palm Springs isn't up and running yet. So the private management, like Long Beach, I think is the example. The budget is how much? 70,000.
It's approximately $5,000 a month, and the consultant oversees all the responsibilities, securing the insurance, paying the cost of utilities, building out, cleaning up, curating the art.
So the advantage is they're ready to go. I mean, if you were
Correct.
to pick that, they have their concept already from previous business models and
Yes, that's
ready
correct.
to jump in. Okay.
Well, I like the Long Beach model, obviously, the consultant model, but Long Beach is a much bigger city, and Lord knows how many storefronts they have. So I assume if we go in that direction, that the consultant is going to be a little more flexible on
Price.
what they charge. Mr. Lansing.
Mr. Mayor, certainly that would be borne out in the RFP process, and we would make it competitive and try and find more than just Phantom Galleries. The budget that they have in Long Beach is for that city and what they do there. I'll also add, we started to look at this as a way to maybe dress up vacant properties. But we've also been contacted by people that would like to pursue some kind of exhibit in their occupied properties, if they have the space to do that. And depending on how the guidelines work out, we'd like to try and incorporate that so that we have as much public art as possible.
And have we gotten a feel from the private property owners, the commercial property owners, whether they're interested or not? I mean, have you spoken?
In very brief discussions with a couple of property managers, they are interested in a model. They just all have concerns: who's insuring the art, who's building it out, who's paying the cost of the utilities. And at this point, we just let them know that we're waiting for direction.
But their overall concept is positive. Ms. Friedman?
When the RFP comes back, that consultant, that fee, does that include also paying utilities, or is that something that's an extra expense, insurance, all of those sorts of...
Well, we anticipate that anybody who responds, any consultant that responds to the RFP will address all of the costs associated with the program, which includes the cost of the utilities, insuring the space, build out, clean up, all of that information. We have an example of a proposed budget from Phantom Galleries, but of course we would like to
Right, because
do the RFP so that we can encourage other consultants to
Because
submit.
if I read it correctly, it seemed that the budget that they were proposing included all of that. It included the materials to build, it included the insurance, it included the utilities. They've sort of wrapped it all up into a nice little package with a bow on top so that there's no surprises in their proposal.
And we're going to ask that all consultants do the same, just so they can oversee all of it, so that it is a well-organized and well-run program. We definitely want the consultants to be able to address all of these items so that we don't have surprises later. And I do have a few pictures if you'd like to see. There's just 2 slides,
Sure.
Just so the community at home can kind of see what these galleries are. I think it's ready. These are examples from Long Beach. The top left corner is actually just storefront lighting. That's a corner that's on the sidewalk. The bottom right is just a storefront display installation, and the top left again is just installation in the storefront, and the bottom picture is an actual temporary gallery. And these are, as I mentioned, from Long Beach, and they have rotating galleries every, I think, about 5.5 weeks, and they use 3 different types of models there.
Okay, Mr. Draymond.
All right. Let me ask one quick question, though, about the BID in Berkeley. Do we know what the size of that BID is?
I don't know the size of the BID, but
I don't mean geographically the size. How many businesses is that? Do we know?
I don't know how many businesses, but their program is limited to 2 blocks right now, and those are the 2 blocks that see the most pedestrian traffic. I think it's near transit area, and so they had a lot of vacant storefronts, so that's why they're focused on those 2 blocks right now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, I have a couple of speaker cards. I have a card from a noted artist, classically trained, Rick Lemo.
Classically trained. Thank you, Mayor and Council. You heard my fans. You obviously know my art. They read the funny papers. First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Draymond and Councilmember Friedman. We've been talking about this for a while, and I appreciate you pushing this forward. We do have some concerns. I think over the long haul, this is a great plan. In the short term, it doesn't do what we need it to do, most particularly on Brand Boulevard. One of the biggest problems we're getting from feedback is that there are sections of Brand Boulevard that just look dead. There's no lights, and so no one wants to travel down there in any part of the nighttime. And that's even worse during the winter as nighttime comes a little earlier. And I would suggest in your deliberations, if a property owner, and most particularly the city as a property owner, is willing, that in the short term you ask the property owner to either dress the window themselves if they happen to have a product, or, as we've talked about before, donate their space to a local arts organization, but do it now so that the lights don't come on later and the lights come on as soon as possible. That doesn't mean that it doesn't get better and there's more variety when a consultant gets involved, but something as simple as a city-owned property could maybe work with a local arts group to have bright lights and information in there as soon as possible. And then last but not least, it would be my hope that as our bid gets developed, to maybe be a little bit more cost efficient, our bid could look at the model in Berkeley and maybe take over the management of the windows as well. But I think it's a great idea, just I think we have to be more time sensitive, and this is one of those instances where some of the properties may not need to wait for a consultant, and we could have a short-term effect, and I'd ask you to take a look at that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Draymond.
Let me address Mr. Lemo's concern. The biggest concern that we've heard from Mr. Lemo and from Caruso Affiliated has been the 2 city agency-owned properties across the street from Caruso Avenue, the former Rite Aid building and the former Great Carpet Company building. And I'm going to ask Mr. Lanzafame to just update us on that, the activation of the windows there.
Mr. Chairman, members of the City Council and Redevelopment Agency, we are in the process of cleaning up the building and then constructing vitrine windows in the existing window space, window frames. And then the proposed user, ultimate tenant, the Museum of Neon Art, is interested in displaying some of their smaller signs that would fit in those windows, so that we do create some interest, we do create some activity, some life, and we also can start to spread the word about the Museum of Neon Art and eventually locating in that space. We hope to have all of those improvements done within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So by the end of February, we would have the vitrines ready and potentially Mona have signs in those windows.
All right. Does that fit with your concern about promptness? Noted classical artist, Mr. Lemon.
Thank you very much. I think that's a great schedule, and I appreciate the city taking that approach to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I have another card. Helen McDonald.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. I'm here just to say that I'm very supportive of the idea. It's something that the DGMA board discussed probably about 3.5 years ago. We actually even went as far as meeting with a company to try to get this going at that point in time. But I guess what I'd really like to say is I'd like to see the city, particularly redevelopment, doing more to attract new retailers into empty spaces. I mean, art is great, but we have to do more as a city to attract viable businesses into our downtown area. I have a 3,500 square foot space next to Massage Envy that has been empty for several months. I don't see it being rented anytime soon. It's only got about 25 feet of street frontage. And then we're about to have another empty store next to Damon's with about 50 feet of retail frontage, and that's Universal Rugs. So you have 2 empty stores on the westbound side of the 300th block, a fairly important block in the downtown area. So I'd really like us to focus on attracting new businesses there, but in the meantime, certainly having art, installations, photography, lighting in those windows goes a long way to improve the look of the boulevard. And like yesterday, I was walking past my own space. It's not my own, the space that's next to me that's empty, trash, cigarette butts, and a homeless person actually camping out. And it's that break in continuity when you're walking and you're seeing these empty storefronts. So I am supportive of art, lighting, and hopefully we can, solve the long-term issue, which is, to get more retailers into the downtown area. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have for the speaker cards. Any comments? Anyone want to make a motion? Mr. Trayman.
I just wanted to respond briefly to the last speaker. I want to thank them for continuing to push the idea of, especially the aspect of the art in the downtown store windows. This is certainly not the first time this has been raised, and you all have been, the Downtown Glendale Merchants Association has been bringing this forward to the agency and the council for quite a lengthy period of time. So I want to thank them for sticking on that point. I also want to thank my colleagues for making this happen.
Mr. Najarian, then Ms. Friedman.
Assuming we pick one of the 3 options, do we need to get into the details as to how the art is selected, how long it stays on? Do we give it to the commission? At what point do we address those issues?
Thank you, members of the council, members of the agency. Very important question, because we are in the process of developing, we staff, an urban arts policy, which will set forth those very guidelines for purposes of not only vetting the artwork, but making determinations about its removal as well. We have to look at First Amendment issues on those properties that may be publicly owned, or to the extent that the agency or the city is involved with the placement of art. So yes, that needs to come back to you for consideration before we set a consultant, if that's the option that you choose, on to placing art in at the behest of the agency and the city in privately owned or in public spaces. So it does need to be addressed.
Well, Ms. Starbird and Ms. Friedman.
Well, I guess I would anticipate that whatever consultant chosen, if that's the route we take, will have already experienced a lot of these issues and be able to give us advice on how we can structure a program to avoid some of these problems. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel here. So I think a lot of it depends on the experience and knowledge of the consultant, if indeed that's the route we take.
And we will be asking for that information as part of the RFP process from consultants, if that's the route you choose to take.
Ms. Friedman.
Yeah, this is a very exciting project. It accomplishes a lot of different goals on different levels. It helps to activate Brand Boulevard and the streetscape. It makes it so that it looks like every building is occupied. It solves those problems of walking past dark and boarded up windows and the appearance of light. And on a completely different level, it adds art to our public spaces, and it gives people something to look at besides products in a shop window. Adds that sense of excitement, and I think it's really wonderful to see. I would like to say, particularly to the people from the Merchants Association, that economic development is a huge push right now in the Redevelopment Agency. And you will be seeing details of programs coming out, but it's something that we're not taking it all for granted. And filling empty spaces is kind of the goal number one right now, more than anything. So you're not, we've heard that, we hear it, we agree with you, and it's a big push and taking up a lot of our staff time, and I think that you will be seeing the fruits of that sooner rather than later, which is very good news. I favor of the models proposed right now for the immediate future, the consultant model. I'm looking forward to the RFPs. The proposal that we have from Phantom Gallery is very encouraging because it's very cost-contained, and it is one-stop shopping. They do everything. They clean the spaces, they light the spaces, they maintain them, they keep them clean so you don't have derelicts and cigarette butts and all of that gathering. And they kind of take it all over. So it'll be interesting to see what other groups come forward and what the fruits of a competitive process end up bearing. But I think it's wonderful, and the sooner we can get it going, the better.
Okay, and for myself, I'm very happy we're moving forward with this. I think it's a very good idea, multiple levels, like Ms. Friedman mentioned. So the sooner we get going, the better. If we get this ready for the summer, I think that will be great. People have a tendency to walk a lot summer evenings, and so this would be perfect for Brand and the adjoining streets, because we're talking about Maryland and Broadway and all of the other downtown streets. Mr. Draymond.
The only other thing I wanted to add is that I am supportive of the consultant model as well, and that I would hope that when we do have, and I anticipate that will be a successful direction, and that when we have a BID, and I'm convinced we will, in the downtown area, that decision making and that administration will move to the purview of the BID. It's also one of the benefits of having a BID. Have greater control over your immediate turf, so to speak, in making decisions about the administration of the merchandising activities there. So that would be the progression I'd love to see. For now, I support the idea of a consultant model. And just to emphasize the comments that my colleague, Councilmember Friedman, was making about the agency, I'd like to turn to Phil Lansafame for a moment to express to the representatives of the Downtown Glendale Merchants Association, anybody else that cares to listen, what that emphasis is, without the specifics we can't get into at the moment, but just the emphasis, sort of the new emphasis related to the redevelopment area.
Mr. Draymond, we are in fact gearing up programs to look at identify the sites that are vacant, to identify the mix that is here currently, and then identify who we should be targeting to fill those vacancies in an appropriate mix. We have, through some of the stimulus money, we have hired a retail specialist, a woman that has retail background, both with large malls as well as a smaller inline space, to help us with that effort, and we'll be bolstering resources as we can. I think Ms. Friedman said it's our goal number one. We want to be able to say that we're chasing several tenants at one time to fill these vacancies and help not only keep Glendale vibrant, but also support the other businesses that are in the area.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, do I have a motion?
Move 1A. Yes, move 1A.
A second?
not sure I can second it as the...
Jarian, second. All right, roll call, please.
Council members, or sorry, agency members, Friedman?
It's an agency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver, Chairman Draymond.
Yes.
All right, next, please.
A motion to
We have a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn for the agency.
So moved.
Second?
The agency is adjourned.
And a motion for the city council.
So moved.
Second?
We are adjourned.